All right, let's dive right into a really profound idea from a 1987 spiritual discourse. It's this notion that every one of us is on a lifelong and usually unconscious search for a kind of divine inner light. And it all kicks off with one simple, universal question. So the discourse we're unpacking today starts right here. Why does a newborn baby cry? I mean, we might say it's the cold or the shock of a new place, but this text, it offers a much, much deeper, more spiritual reason for that very first sound. Okay, so according to this teaching, a baby inside the womb isn't just floating in the dark. It's actually bathed in this perfect, blissful inner light. They call it Buddha light. Birth, then, is this incredibly traumatic separation from that peace. The air and the light of the outside world are described as being harsh, almost painful, causing that first cry, a cry of profound loss. And that initial loss, that deep shock, is said to be the trigger for a lifelong and, like we said, often subconscious quest to find that original light all over again. Think about it. It kind of makes sense. How do we instinctively try to soothe a crying baby? We dangle bright, colorful toys, we shake a rattle. The idea here is that the infant is momentarily fooled, thinking, oh, there it is, the light and the sound that I lost. But it pretty quickly realizes, nope, this is just plastic, this is hollow. And so begins this lifelong pattern of searching. And this search definitely doesn't stop in childhood. Oh no. As adults, our attractions to flashy, colorful fashion, to brightly lit clubs and concerts, even our simple preference for a warm, sunny day, all of these are seen as echoes of that same subconscious craving. You could say we spend our whole lives like moths, chasing all these external flames, all while searching for our own inner light. But this leads to a really critical distinction. The fleeting external lights that we chase are fundamentally different from the true inner light that we've supposedly lost. So here's the core division. On one side, you have the light of the outer world. It's physical, it's temporary, like sunlight, lamps, neon signs. It just stimulates our physical eyes. But on the other side is the inner or supermundane light. This is described as eternal and spiritual, the peaceful, healing light of our true essence. The real journey, then, is about shifting our focus from the one to the other. You can even find little clues about this hidden in language itself, which is pretty cool. The Chinese character for enlightenment, which is Ming in Vietnamese, is literally a combination of the symbols for the sun and the moon. The very word for this huge spiritual goal just means to become bright, connecting this abstract concept to a really tangible image of light. And get this inner light isn't just for saints or ancient sages. It's supposedly inside everyone. There's this amazing anecdote in the source material about a man who was sent to a funeral to find a wise sage. His instructions were to look for the person with a halo. But when he got there, he saw that everyone had a halo, because in that moment of seriously contemplating life and death, their spiritual nature had just woken up. It was only on the way home, as their minds went back to worldly stuff, that the halos vanished, all except for one, the true sages. So that story raises a pretty important question, doesn't it? If this light is inside all of us, how do we learn to access it consistently and not just in these rare, fleeting moments? Well, the discourse suggests the answer lies in finding a guide. This guide, called a Minsu or enlightened master, is said to have three main jobs. First, they are already connected to this inner light. They possess it. Second, they hold the key, the actual method to unlock that same potential in other people. And third, and this part is crucial, they can provide immediate proof, a direct initial experience of that light. To explain this point, the discourse uses this fantastic analogy. A master who only makes promises is like a millionaire who won't spare a single dollar for someone who's starving. What good is their wealth to you, right? The point is that a true guide doesn't ask for years of blind faith. They offer a small, direct taste of enlightenment right up front, as proof that the path is legit. But receiving this key is just the first step. The discourse is very, very clear that for this whole transmission to actually work, the vessel that's receiving the light, well, it also has to be pure. The logic here is explained with a really simple analogy. If you have a dirty cup,
Even the purest water in the world becomes contaminated and undrinkable the second you pour it in. In this teaching, our body is the cup.
So to purify this cup, the discourse insists on a path of purity, and the most crucial, non-negotiable step is a strict vegetarian diet. It argues that eating meat taints the body, and even more importantly, it severs our own seed of compassion. So on this path, going vegetarian isn't presented as a lifestyle choice, but as a foundational requirement for any spiritual progress.
So why this intense focus on purity and finding this inner light? Well, it all points to the ultimate goal of the entire journey: liberation from the endless cycle of reincarnation.
The logic is all rooted in the law of karma. Actions like eating other beings are said to create a karmic debt, and according to this universal law, that debt has to be repaid. This is what supposedly traps a soul in an endless cycle of rebirth through what are called the 6 different realms of existence. The 2 potential fates are laid out pretty clearly. To remain impure means staying stuck on the wheel of reincarnation, just bouncing between suffering and some fleeting pleasure. The goal of this practice, though, is complete liberation, to permanently break that cycle and return to an eternal state of bliss, the world of Buddha.
The core logic is summed up with a really pointed question. If we consume other beings to live, how can we possibly expect permanent freedom for ourselves? The conclusion drawn is that under the universal law of as you sow, so shall you reap, that karmic debt makes true liberation completely impossible.
And so we end right back where we started. This discourse from 1987 leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. We spend our whole lives chasing these external lights in fashion, in entertainment, in success. But what if the true eternal light we are all searching for isn't out there at all? What if it's been waiting inside of us all this time? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.